Hi, everybody. Today we have Mohsen. He is building a financial literacy app for the kids and teens in Pakistan. And I think there is no one else right now, personally, that I've seen or come across who is actually, building something on ground for a problem that all of us are tackling and have been tackling since we were kids, brought up in Pakistan, and have been seeing that हमारे culture में financial literacy के बारे में बात नहीं की जाती है. And I think that's why I brought Mohsen here to actually talk about it. And again, I think it's very relevant to the idea of investing at 25 as well. Because financial literacy is not, again, आपके पास करोड़ों एक रात में नहीं बनते हैं. There's always a skill set that you need to build. There's a journey that you need to have to get what you do. And once you have that, you need to have patience and, a mindful sort of an attitude to invest money in a proper and a wise manner as well, looking at your resources, risk capacity, not just following people blindly around you. So I think that's where I would really want you to, talk more about आपकी journey. I know you have a financial background, so feel free to, talk more about कहाँ से शुरुआत हुई है, how did you start your financial literacy journey, and अभी you're providing a platform to other people to do the same. Feel free to share.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've had the opportunity to, sort of follow your conversations with so many individuals up until now, and I think, it's amazing how those conversations flow. So really looking forward to it. I mean, starting the conversation in terms of how my own journey began and how it sort of ended up. Yes, I come from an investing background. I've worked as a portfolio manager, looking after, debt equity investments for both individuals and institutions for a while in Pakistan. I think that was primarily one of the reasons that, I've sort of ended up here because I've gone through, like hundreds of conversations, both with individuals who were sort of just starting out in their careers and a lot of individuals were established, CEOs of companies and, stuff like that. And then institutions as well, because even at the back of institutions who are actually managing money, they're still individuals, right, who are actually looking up. And one of the, I think, underlying learnings that I've had through that experience is the fact that it didn't really matter what socioeconomic background you came from or what kind of an education you had or where you were in your career journey. One of the things that was common in everyone was the fact that there was a general lack of the ability to take self-beneficial financial decisions. And I'm not consciously saying financial literacy or, the ability to, pick the right financial products, because self-beneficial financial behavior is a very relative term. It could mean something very different for you, and it could mean something very different for myself.
If we can elaborate on that a little bit, Mohsen, just to, get an idea of what it means for you so that people who have another meaning for themselves can also relate to it in one way or another.
So essentially, self-beneficial financial decisions and individuals' ability to be able to be aware of your own circumstances, be aware of what is available, what is being pitched to you, right? And then be able to take that decision, evaluate, think critically and say, okay, does this make sense for me? Just because you see a billboard, it doesn't mean that it's for you. Right? So it's like, marketing, but however good that is, it doesn't necessarily is something, because everybody's trying to push a product down to you, right? But you as an individual, but nobody really understands your individual circumstances. And I wouldn't really call it something which is, and we tend to generalize it within the industry that, if you're a certain age, you're supposed to do this. If you're a certain age,
exactly.
I mean, frankly speaking, there is no blueprint for anything.
Correct.
All of us are on a different journey. At times, people who are starting out tend to think that there is a blueprint for how what success like.
Yes.
And how, obviously, because you look at people around you and you see their journeys and you feel like, that's what I should be going after as well, or that's the path I should be looking after too. But it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, life is more unpredictable in that sense, and everybody has their own surprises, good and bad, in store. And all you can do is just, face them. So I think in that context, irrespective of what your age is, your individual circumstances are more relevant when it comes to taking those decisions whenever you're faced with that choice, right? Whether it's the choice of opening your first bank account, or whether it's a choice of picking your first investment, or whether it's a choice of buying a house or anything else. You have to evaluate your own circumstances and decide whether any product is good for you or not. And that obviously is a process, right? And a lot of factors enable you to do that. And one of those things is absolutely financial education. Something that absolutely nobody really teaches you, because nobody really talks.
Oh my God, I am so glad that we're getting into this now, because I feel like this is something that we lack. And, people say that we have a lot of, hard skills, soft skills की कमी है, इन चीज़ों की कमी है, but I feel like soft skills हो या hard skills हो, उनसे जो भी पैसा बनता है, उसे करना क्या है, we don't know about that, right?
So, our soft skills or hard skills is like a step further, right?
Exactly.
Let's talk
Yep.
about life skills first, right?
Correct. I love that.
Life
Love that.
are, so जैसे आपको सिखाते हैं कि आप उठो कैसे, बैठो कैसे, खाना कैसे खाओ, So when you're in people, how are you supposed to conduct yourself? How are you supposed to be respectful? How are you supposed to respect the other person's space?
Yep.
All of those things that make you, a disciplined social animal in that respect, right? We are trained since we are young, knowing and unknowingly, to become a productive part of the society, right? Our education system tries to do that. Our families try to do that. And that's what we're trying to achieve, right? But in between all of this, being able to manage your money is an essential life skill, but nobody talks about it. Nobody really prepares you for it.
Yep.
And because irrespective, whatever you end up doing in your life, whether it's, whether you decide to work, not work, and if you're working, whether you decide to, be a entrepreneur or a musician or an artist or a banker or whatever it is, you will interact with money. I mean, that's one of the absolute truths of life. Whether it's and money is relative. It doesn't matter if you're interacting with 10 rupees or 10 crore rupees or whatever that is. It's relative, but you will still interact with it, right? So being able to or making somebody prepared for that interaction is an essential life skill and very important, and one that nobody really prepares you for. And I think there are two sides of it, right? There's a family and there's the society at large, which includes educational institutions and other stakeholders. So when you look at families, obviously, and this is something that we realized after speaking to so many families across Pakistan while we were doing our market research too. There are two reasons for that. Number one is, as a society, we have this culture of shielding children from a lot of conflict, right? We don't really talk about money with children unless and until there's a crunch. So much like in times like today, when there is higher inflation, and even families who are in a certain socioeconomic class are making sacrifices. So maybe you have to explain it to your children that, okay, this year we will not be taking that vacation. This year we will not be buying something that we were thinking of buying, like for the family. It could be a new TV or anything, right? We would not be upgrading our car that we were deciding to do. So these are the conversations that now, because there is a crunch, you're sort of, because you have to give an explanation to your child why you're not doing something that you had planned to do as a family. Now you're having that conversation, but it shouldn't be that way, right? You have to talk about money on a regular basis. So just a simple conversation about paying bills. Why are you paying bills every month? There is a reason for it, right? Not because you get those bills, but because there is a reason for it. To be able to provide a certain service to your family, and what does that mean? And if you're paying bills, what else is it that you're not paying for? What is it? There's an opportunity cost to it, right? Correct. So what is it that you're not able to do because you're paying that money for that bill? I think if you were to explain it like that to a child, then it's easier to say कि आप AC बंद कर दो बहुत देर चल गया, right? Because then they'll understand, because the money is going there, it is not going somewhere else, right? Correct. It could be far more productive. I mean, I'm not saying AC is not productive. I mean, thank God.
No, I get what you mean. Because I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, for example, when our parents, especially our moms or dads, when they want to go and pay the bills, normally we're the ones being asked to drive them to the banks, because again, if they're not doing it online, that's also a separate story. But if we're the ones, taking them at least to make that step, we'll help you to pay the bill. But the fact that we don't even understand budget allocation ho kahan se rahi hai, to where they're able to pay this bill, and how are they going to manage this in the future, and what's left behind after they pay the bill, and what are they going to do with it next. I think that's, again, like you mentioned, the money management part, that's where it steps in.
So involving children into these conversations,
Absolutely.
whether these are good times or bad times, should be a norm, right? You should not feel like that you should shield children from these conversations, because whether you like it or not, they're learning about it somewhere else, right? Whether you want them to or not want them to, they are being exposed to that conversation somewhere else. And on the other hand, when you talk about schools, so schools and education institutions, they're doing an amazing job in terms of preparing children for college, right? Or education, which sets them on a journey towards academic success and a great career and all of that. So they're teaching you how to make money, or how to make the most amount of money. But what they're not teaching you essentially is what to do with that money, like the way you mentioned early on. Right? And I mean, I mentioned it earlier as well, and it's just one of my favorite stories.
Right.
When I started out in the investment industry, right? So I was absolutely one of the first people in my family to have started work in the investment industry as a stockbroker. Right? I know that sounds really fancy, but it's not.
Right.
So
For how long were you a stockbroker? Mohsin? 5 years.
5 years.
Wow. Okay.
So almost 7 years in the investment industry, 5 years as a stockbroker, and then transitioned into the other side in the asset management space, being a portfolio manager.
Right. Okay.
But the whole, so the initial time frame, because in Pakistan you find a lot of people going into banks, but you find a very small number of people going into the investment industry and becoming stockbrokers.
Correct.
So in my family, in my extended family, nobody, forget the fact working in a stock brokerage house, but nobody had ever even bought a share of a company, right?
Wow.
So, for the longest time, they had trouble asking me what my work looks like, right? Because usually when you talk to people, the profession of doctors or anybody else, you can ask them certain things, right? Because you understand what their profession looks like.
Correct.
All people hear of the stock market is on TV in Pakistan when they see that market mein mandi hai ya market mein tezi hai. That's right.
Always, the breaking news wali headlines. Aaj ki taza tareen surkhiyan.
So it's always the red or the green, right?
Exactly.
And the red is like the bigger news in that respect.
Correct.
So so when I started out, my employer asked me to go and sort of talk about personal finance and stock market investing to this room full of clinical psychologists, right?
Wow.
So these are like top of the game, PhDs, publishing research, doing all of those. Think about it. These people study the human mind for a living, right? So me, a newbie, standing in front of an auditorium full of these people, it was very intimidating. Absolutely. Right? I just asked them a simple question, which was, throughout your academic career, and you've achieved so much, right? Going from school to college, university, PhD, whatever. Were you ever taught what to do with your money once you start making? And then just the tables turned, right? Because then they thought, okay, this guy might have something to tell us, which nobody has told us before. Right? And that's something I've constantly experienced. So even people who have money, so let's say somebody who's very high on a hierarchy in a company, and they can always engage people like advisors, financial advisors, to be able to help them with their wealth. Right. But they themselves don't understand what is good for them. So they'll just rely on the advisor. So the advisor comes, tells them, sir, ye acha hai, ye le le, aap aisa kar. And they'll be like, ha. A, because they don't have time. B, they don't understand it themselves, right? True. So, and which might not be good for them, which is why you see a lot of people, a lot of millennials or people from my generation, I should not say your generation, my generation and the generations before that, have experienced that they have been a victim of aggressive selling of financial products that they don't understand, and they've ended up with bad financial products that they had that they would have to then bear the brunt. And if you actually combine these two aspects together, which is the family and the schools and all of both these aspects, it's not surprising why people from our generation ended up learning about money through trial and error. That's how I learned about it. Because you made mistakes. Nobody taught you about money, you made mistakes, and then you learned about it. And then now, if I look at hindsight, I can say, these are 4 or 5 big mistakes that I made throughout my life so far. That could have been
share those mistakes, Mohsin? I would love to know that.
So many. It's as simple as opening your first bank account. It seems like a very simple thing. So I think 90% of people open their first bank account when they start working for a company, and usually dictated by a company that, this is where your salary account needs to be. Right? You can actually choose it to be either a current account or a savings account. But even at that point in time, you don't really understand, okay, what is the difference? So maybe I'll get some money, but what is that some money when I open a savings account? What does that entail in terms of tax deductions or, any other kind of deductions? Let's say zakat deductions, perhaps, or any other deductions that per se. And what does that return look like? And where is that return coming from, right? So how am I making that money on that savings account? So all of those things you don't understand. So when you go to a bank for the first time and tell them, I need to open my account because my employer is asking me to do it, the conversation is very different because you're just relying on the guy to explain it to you, how it is, what it is, and whichever product, they'll tell you is okay for you because you're just starting out, your salary is not glamorous enough for them to pitch you like a better rate product, so all of those things you don't understand. And then once you have that set up, after you complete your probationary period, you're given like like that employee contributory benefit, right? So now you're enrolled into a retirement savings plan.
Yep.
But do you understand what retirement saving plans look like? What exactly is? What am I making? Where is my money being invested into? Is that good for me? Is that
These are
bad for me?
such valid questions, honestly, because I feel like even like this seems like it was yesterday that I was questioning all of this, even myself. And I have been working for 5 years, but still, every time, let's say, even when you move employers, right, when you switch jobs, because I think in our generation, job hopping is also like a thing that people are more accustomed to. And there's no harm in it, there's nothing bad in it. You can always move when you feel like there's learning that you can find elsewhere, right? And there's growth opportunities in like a lot of different companies. But I feel like every time you switch employers, right, a lot of these questions come back up again. Sometimes you're moving cities, sometimes you're relocating, sometimes you're again, you have a higher salary, so you need something else that you're looking for. And again, a complete different set of financial products is now served in your platter, right? So it's completely different. And I think these questions honestly don't stop in the first half or in the first leg of your financial journey, but they always keep repeating. And like you mentioned, these mistakes are something that you'll always end up making if you don't really learn or you start exposing yourself to actual learning or following people and going into this whole thing.
Yeah, so there's a journey of life. Whenever you begin that journey, I mean, it doesn't matter. You begin at 20, begin at 30, whenever you start working, you start encountering these things, right?
Very true.
These things, so bank account, checkbook, card, even something as simple as a debit card has a lot of safety issues associated. I have seen, like, and I'm sure you must have as well, or I hope you mustn't have, but I've seen a lot of people just give their debit card to somebody else to go to the ATM and pull money from. I'm not talking about people who don't understand what a debit card is. So people who are actually part of the financial services industry tend to give it to, like, the help around the office, or like somebody like that, to just go to the ATM because they don't want to go to the ATM. So they just give it to the guy, tell them their PIN, and they go to the ATM, withdraw the money. To me, that's an alien concept, because I understand, that has a lot of security information on it.
Very true. Very true.
And you can't just think that, just because somebody, you trust somebody, it's just not something you share it with, right?
Correct.
So a lot of these things are obviously, they need to be taught to you in a structured manner, so that you understand before you start interacting with it, right? That's essentially how we're building GenMo, to make it a financial education focused money app, empowering millions of teenagers across Pakistan to access digital financial services and digital financial education together. So you need to understand what you're getting into before you get into that. Combining these two things together is very powerful in terms of its impact, because if I were to just give you, like, a 1 hour lesson on after 10 minutes, you'll be bored, right? You'll be like, what are you even on about?
True.
If you don't even have the opportunity to apply those learnings, then you're going to forget about it, like, in another.
And honestly, all of these things are more of like concepts that you can't really learn by listening to someone, but learn by applying them, and like learning on the go.
And even in terms of learning, so our generation is by and large done, right? So we've gone through these initial journeys of services and all, although we're still learning, but still. But in terms of the next generation, because unfortunately nothing has really changed, right? So you still don't have a personal finance course. Parents are still not talking to children about money.
Correct.
Now the gap has actually increased, because now you have Gen Z children of millennial parents, right?
Right.
And millennial parents are still struggling to understand an age-old asset class like the stock market, which has been there since the tulip making. And they're still struggling to sort of invest into stock markets and all of that. But the Gen Z children, these teenagers and beyond, they not only understand that they need to invest into stock market, but they also want to get into cryptos and NFTs and all of those. And they go back.
Are immense, right? If we look at it, it's insane. It's crazy. But I think there's one thing that everybody keeps talking about, and I have had this question, but I think most of the people that I've met from Pakistan, and whenever I'm asking, okay, what are the opportunities or where can people invest from Pakistan? Because let's say there are certain stocks, certain companies that you cannot invest in from Pakistan. Considering that scenario, and then on top of that, you have this layer of where people only think you can only invest money until you have a certain amount, and then all of it goes into real estate, and that's where the investing journey starts and ends, and that's it. And I think that's where I want to get to with your, now that you're also talking about GenMo and how you want to bridge the gap between the millennial parents and the Gen Zs. I think if you can also talk more about the opportunities that are available for investing for people living in Pakistan, I think that's also something that I really want to touch upon.
And I think that's actually a very interesting area to sort of get into now. In terms of investing, so investing obviously is a heavily regulated space throughout the world.
Very true.
Obviously, because the world is by and large divided into regions now and not countries, and because of globalization things, a lot of platforms are regionally and obviously struggle to sort of penetrate into certain global areas in that respect. That is not necessarily, I mean, and specifically in a country like Pakistan, where you're still struggling with getting people to open a bank account, right? There's a progression, right? I mean, if on day one I tell you, Sania, you know what, just because the conversation is so loud,
it's trendy and it's the hype.
and let's say you're like, you're just starting out and you don't even have a bank account. So you haven't even figured out your spending yet.
Wow.
And I'm asking you to jump to investing without having gone through, understanding your spending, your savings, and then investing.
Wow.
You can't just start at the end, right? So
Right.
even when people say that, I mean, you can, but there's a learning curve to it. And obviously you'll make mistakes, you'll go back and you'll understand. You'll have to figure out things like that. But still, that's not the right way to do it, right? So even when people talk about entrepreneurship, right? So even that is like a second level conversation. The first level conversation still remains that you need to understand money. If you understand money, you'll understand, because a lot of people start from entrepreneurship and go back to understanding costs and revenues and all of those things. Right?
Yep.
But if you were to start with understanding money, you'd already have an understanding of those things, right?
True.
So income becomes revenue, your expenses become costs, right? So it's something easier to relate to and understand. And when it comes to Pakistan, right, it is not necessarily bad that these platforms are not available for people in Pakistan to get into, because only 0.13% of the population invests into the local stock market, right? And when I bring it back to local stock market, there's a reason for that, because these people are using products of a company which is listed on the local stock market, right? So a lot of people want to buy, let's say, Apple stock, right?
Yeah.
But one of the primary reasons for that is they're using their product, right? Let's forget the fact right now that they have access to doing it or not access to doing it, right? But one of the primary reasons that they want to do it is because they've used that product, they love that product, and they think there's a lot of value in that product. And they want to, and they see Apple as a growing company and so many successes and all of that. And they want to be a part of that success, right? That's why they want to invest into Apple. There can't be any other reason, right? But when it comes to local companies, the products that you're using every day, so whether it's, a Nestle, or let's say, like an oil company that, so you're going, a pump every day and getting your fuel tank filled. So you're using their product, right? But that is not translating into your investment decisions. So you want to invest into Apple, but you don't want to invest into a company which is not local. I mean, Nestle is not a local company. You're using their product.
I get what you
mean. But that option is available to you, right? So you're not doing that, but you want to, like, just because your friends are doing it, or it's friends, you want to. And then comes another asset class, which is cryptos and all of those things, and which is like an asset class which is not age old. There's not a lot of data on it. There's not a lot of way of valuing it. I personally think that if, as an individual, you can figure out the why of investing, right, you should invest into that asset, whatever that is.
Right.
But you have to figure out the why. You should answer the why, right? Don't tell me that I want to invest into something just because my friend is doing it, just because I saw TV, just because it's just something that is happening. You need to be able to answer, why am I investing into it? And anytime anybody ever recommends you an investment opportunity, no matter how lucrative it sounds or whatever it is, you have to ask them the classic question, why? Why should I do it? And if they can't explain it to you in a way that makes sense to you and your circumstances, you should never do it. That is the biggest red flag out.
That's a really good one. That's a very good one. Yeah.
Even if it's coming from the most, I don't know, it's a bad example, but even if Warren Buffett is saying to you to invest into something, you should ask him why. And if he's unable to answer that question, you should not invest. It doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, it is your individual circumstances. It's and you need to be able to answer that question. In Pakistan, the asset classes that people can invest in, real estate you're absolutely right, is one of those asset class, but that's a very big ticket size.
Correct.
But usually a lot of family financial socialization pushes you to do real estate because that's what they've done in their lives, right?
Correct.
And they push you to do real estate because they're like, जब भी माँ बाप देखते हैं बच्चा थोड़ा पैसे कमाने लगा है वो कहते हैं बेटा ये प्रॉपर्टी खरीदो या ये ले लो, because that's the only thing that they have invested in.
Absolutely.
And that's their scope, right? And then apart from real estate, there's an option of the stock market. So indirectly and directly, so you can directly invest into the stock market, and you can indirectly do it through mutual funds, right? Then there is the fixed income market, so the bonds market, you can invest into that as well in Pakistan.
Right.
Then there is commodities market, so you can invest into gold, oil, silver, all of these commodities through the local regulated Pakistan Mercantile Exchange. And you have to understand the importance of a locally regulated exchange, because tomorrow, if something were to go south, you have to have some local regulator that you can go towards who can help you with whatever has happened to you in terms of the circumstance, right? So if you end up making, a bad trade, or somebody ends up, mis-selling you something, and you end up getting stuck in a product, only a local regulator can help you if you're living in Pakistan.
Right.
If you're using a platform which is not regulated in Pakistan, and this is true for any country, none of these apps that you've taken names of and all the popular apps in the world, they cannot work in a country if the regulator does not allow that.
Absolutely.
Because the regulator is there to protect the interest of the population at large. So a certain app might make sense for a country which has a lot of financial inclusion, a lot of people understand those things, and a lot of those regulatory pieces in place to protect you in case something goes south.
Yep.
What might not make sense in a country like Pakistan.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Have those safeguards in place, right? So those safeguards needs to be in place.
Yes.
Protect these people, not inhibit them to be able to take exposure to these asset classes, but to protect them. And that is also changing now. So in Pakistan, you have a lot of companies who are coming into the crypto space, working with the regulator.
I'm honestly so happy to see that there's so many fintech companies now. Whether like people, again, like Sada Pay and then GenMo, like all of these companies are trying to like awaken that sort of financial, bring that awareness into people, whether it's about why do you need to hold a card, like why do you need this digital online banking, and how do you use it, and how can you, like, for example, we have a really big freelancer community, right? How do they receive money, and how can you make it easier for them to receive payments from abroad? I think all of these things are it's really good that people are working on like amazing companies which are doing really well and making lives easier now. So I think for me it makes me really happy to see that it's happening now in Pakistan. And another really good example is what you're working on, GenMo. And I think one thing that I really want to highlight here and maybe want to talk to you about is, again, looking at the time as well, if you were to give advice to, let's say, kids, or like regardless of age, honestly, because people can start their financial journey at whatever age. It depends on when you're ready for it and when you're ready to learn the way you want to learn. So if you were to give advice to people who are starting off their financial journey, what would that be? That's one advice that I need from you. And another thing would be like anything for parents out there. How can they have these conversations and get their kids involved in financial decisions, and also helping them understand about personal finance, money management? So yeah, because I think both of these are very, very crucial, and they're linked. Obviously, they're linked. So I think from your side, I would really want to hear more on that.
So for children or for teenagers, I would say just keep exploring, right? So keep looking into things. And now there's so much information available. So whether it's TikTok or otherwise, or on blogs, and so many good content out there. So keep exploring. Keep being curious, keep asking questions, and don't take anything on face value, right? Keep critically questioning those things. And then as far as parents are concerned, I think parents are doing such an amazing job, with so many things, right? I mean, they have so much on their plate, right? Already. But it's just that just opening that door in terms of a conversation, sharing something as small as this is what a grocery budget looks like for your house, just something like that. would open a door for these conversations to begin.
Right.
And let children ask questions. And it's okay if you don't know the answers to these questions. Nobody knows everything.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
But it's good to, sort of go back, research on it, or do it together. Make it a family activity, right? So sit with your son.
That'd be really nice. That'd be so cool if actually people started doing that. Very nice.
Yeah, and so and look at the platforms that they are looking at. So if your son or daughter, whoever is already looking at or following somebody on TikTok, let's say, was explaining to them about cryptos and all of those things, get on to TikTok, right? Just follow that person. Just you'll have so much more common to talk about.
Yes.
When you look at the same content that your child is looking at, right? And just have those conversations, those discussions, so that, because at the end of the day, if they are learning, which they are, right, and you're not learning, then there's more of a possibility that they come, because obviously they're living with you 24/7, right?
Yeah.
And they come to you for questions, and you end up feeling dumbfounded that I don't know the answer to that question. And the natural response to the not knowing an answer to a question is stopping that, saying no, that's bad, you should stay away from it, just because you don't understand it. It's your fear taking over things, right? Wow. So yeah, pretty much that.
Nice. If you were to talk about your personal financial journey and how you started investing money, if you were to compare your first ever investment in your life, and now to how you invest your money, I just want to understand, what are you basically your biggest achievements in terms of investments and your biggest failures, if you can share?
So when I started out in the investment industry, right, because I was investing for other people, I was not allowed to invest for myself, right?
Wow.
So for the longest time, I could invest money for myself, because you're not allowed to, because you're, that's
like insider. Yep.
So you can't, you're obviously taking those decisions for other people. And I think one of the successes that I had, or the big learnings that I had during that time of managing money, because obviously it's a lot more responsibility and all of those things, but was the fact that there is no need to generalize everything, right? You have to find some tailor-made solutions for everyone. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You can't generalize one investment for everyone and say this is good for everyone. Obviously. It doesn't work like that. Right? And the other thing is, money is relative.
Yep.
Never look at an amount and feel like this is too small to turn a leaf for me. My friend or somebody else is investing a much bigger amount. They're making much more money. I just have this small amount. I should not invest it, because what will it do, right?
Yeah.
Money is relative. It doesn't matter. When it comes to investing money, you will find that even when you had 5,000 rupees, and when you have like 5 million rupees to invest, or 50 million rupees to invest, or whatever, your process of thinking about something should remain the same. You should assess an investment opportunity the same way, because at the end of the day, any investment is supposed to make you return, right? And fulfill a certain objective. So money in that sense is absolutely relative. So one should not worry about what the amount is. The process, what you need to work on is the process of investing money, not investing money per se, right? Once you perfect that process.
Yeah, but learning.
Once you understand how that process works for you.
Yes.
Money, whatever money, right? You can invest my money, your money, whoever's money. Dollars, it doesn't matter, but the process needs to be in your head in a very clear way. That's what you need to put.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, Mohsen. One last sawal from my side would be, I am very, very proud of you guys working on GenMo, especially because to the way you're communicating the message and the focus that you're having on different platforms. And I love that you mentioned TikToks many, many times even during this call, because my journey started through TikTok. And honestly, for me, that platform, log jo bhi kahe, I think it's something, obviously any platform that you use more often and you are spending more time on, it's the way you use it, right? And it's what you make of it. And I'm really glad and also know more about, where is GenMo heading? What is your vision behind it? Where do you want to take it? And how can people learn more about it and follow you?
Oh yes. So thank you so much. I mean, you too. It's just that, so last year I taught a personal finance course to teenagers, right? So these were like 14 to 17-year-olds. I thought that, and that was more like a light bulb moment in that respect. Because up until then, I was pitching money management and stock market investments to their parents, right? Which is a much harder conversation to have. But this generation, these children were so ready for it, right? And they were so interested to learn more about these things. And to me, it felt that, this is where the actual opportunity exists in terms of making these, because they're already learning it somewhere. And you need to just, obviously, that somewhere does not have any localized content. Because you have to understand the economic profile of somebody living in Pakistan is very different than somebody living in a developed world. So, हमारे यहाँ college debt is not a problem. Obviously, parents are paying for your undergrad degree, So by the time you graduate college, you're pretty much like a high schooler in the developed world, right? You're living at home, your parents are taking care of your expenses, you're going to the university, doing whatever. So only when you graduate, when you're 22, 23, when you actually come out of your undergrad degree, you actually start working and you start handling money and doing all of those things, right? In the developed world, that happens like very early on. So once you go to college, you're to yourself and doing all. So when you start following content of somebody from the developed world, they obviously have a lot more focus on college debt and how to deal with it and all of those. That is not our problem. Our problems are, so we have to have some local platform that can sort of make that conversation. And apart from that, that conversation also needs to happen from your generation to your generation. Right? So if I were to stand, even wearing the most Gen Z clothes or whatever, in front of an audience which is like teenage, the idea of what I'm saying with whatever experience I have going into their brains and actually changing something in their lives is very remote when compared to coming it from their peer, right? So if a 14-year-old is talking to a 14-year-old about investing money, that has a much bigger impact. A 34-year-old talking to a 14-year-old about money, right? Which is what we've tried to change when it comes to our TikTok as well. So if you look at the platform, you'll see a 16-year-old talking about stock market investing. That's a first for Pakistan. Up until now, you've had people wearing suits and ties and sitting on TV and talking about the nitty-gritties of the economy and stock market and all of that. Now you have somebody telling you in 10 seconds how you can open a stock brokerage account and invest in the stock market. Power of the platform of TikTok, right? Keep it short, keep it bite-sized, keep it relevant, and that's it, right? That's all you need. And that's true for all other kinds of financial concepts as well that we're trying to sort of build out. So you will not see my face on GenMo TikTok ever. Something maybe
right.
I don't know, maybe a thing or whatever trend. But apart from that, you will not see me talking about these things. You will always see a teenager talking to a teenager about these things, because that's where the true learning may happen, right? And whatever you see of the GenMo brand is absolutely because of my amazing co-founder Mona. She has, she's the reason why GenMo looks like the way it does. And it has absolutely resonated with the Gen Z and the target audience. So right now we have about over 1,000 GenMo ambassadors across 180 plus educational institutions in Pakistan.
That's amazing. Okay.
So right from Hassan Abdal to KGS, I have a GenMo ambassador there.
Good job, Mohsin. Seriously,
and so
that's amazing.
And so many, like so GenMo, we're building a community, right? I mean, it's not just about making a money app and a debit card. I ended up learning so much from these individuals throughout these conversations. I was like, if there is a generation to learn from, it is Gen Z and beyond.
Wow.
Because they're so self-aware, right?
Oh my God, that's very true. That's very true. The boundary setting, I feel like.
It's so there, right?
Very true.
And then it's not just self-awareness; they're also aware of the environment and the surrounding that they're in, which is very rare. You're either looking inwards or you're looking outwards, right? You're not really aware of both these things together.
Yeah.
But this generation is.
Yeah.
They're a lot more tolerant. They have a lot more empathy than we ever did. And they're more accepting, right? So you can make mistakes, they'll accept you. They'll accept that, yes, you can make mistakes. And some of the most thought-provoking conversations I've had in the last 6 months have come from 13-year-olds, 16-year-olds.
Wow.
Talking about things that one would never even think about. And that just has sort of made our belief in this generation so much. And then learning so much from them, right? So learning the Gen Z slang, or the fact that GIFs are the thing of the past. Now you use stickers. And those stickers are also personalized stickers,
It is.
you know. So a lot of learnings there.
Yeah.
We keep going through that.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea definitely is to ensure that you create a platform which has a deep rooted mission to it. So whenever I talk to anybody, to me, the platform that I'm building, it'll get built, the product will be there, people will use it, it'll be successful, whatever will happen, right? But the general objective here is to ensure that at the end of the day, anybody who comes onto the platform uses it or interacts with me or anybody who's part of the family in that respect, gets the ability to make self-beneficial financial decisions. That's the objective.
Right.
If I'm able to do that, if I'm able to fulfill that, that's the success. People using product, not using product, product will evolve and we'll iterate and do whatever. But the deep-rooted mission is to ensure that anybody who wants to learn about money and is a teenager in Pakistan or beyond, come to the GenMo platform, sign up, get access to that financial education, and sort of develop that essential life skill and move away, right? That's the objective.
But when can people get the app and the card, Mohsen?
So that question is what we get every day, because
I can imagine.
Yeah. It's a huge community. So so the ambassador community is just a very small fraction of the overall wait list that we now have.
Right.
And we get these requests every day asking when are you guys coming? So we're building the platform right now, and inshallah, within the next few months, we'll definitely be out there with the first version of it.
Amazing.
And then we'll just sort of take it from there and keep building.
Awesome. Okay. I think we might need a part 2 once it's launched. We'll probably do that. I'll sync up again with you after that.
No,
but thank you so much, Mohsen, for your time today. And I think it's been a pleasure talking to you. And I'm so glad that this whole conversation was completely focused in the direction of financial awareness, literacy, inclusion, and for like acting as a bridge between different generations, because I think that's much needed. And that's how we're going to be able to tackle all these challenges that all of us have gone through and still go through. Whenever we move jobs, whenever we move countries, cities, it's the same thing that's lingering on, right? Oh, how to open a bank account, what card do I get, when should I get my credit card, which debit card should I be using, what should be the limits, little questions that we have. But again, piling on to the whole thing, it does count in your personal financial awareness and how you manage your money and how you manage your finances. So thank you so much for talking more about that. And I can't wait to actually hear what people have to say when the GenMo app and the card comes out. And I would love to again have a part 2 once it's out there, because I feel like it's going to have a lot of interesting stories.
No, absolutely. And thank you so much. It was such a such an amazing conversation. It rarely happens that you come across people and have conversations and it just feels like you're not talking to them for the first time, right?
Yeah.
With you, it just feel like that, and that's amazing. But the investing at 25, I know I've sort of marked it now, and I sort of go through every post that you make.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So interesting to read that,
Thank you.
because you get coverage of these topics, but for somebody to sort of put that personal conversation into covering these topics is not something that you come across every day. And I think you're doing a fantastic job with that, and more power to you. And more success.
And I'm really glad, honestly. Again, thank you so much for the conversation, for sharing your journey. Thank you so much.